Let's talk to Mel Stride, who's the Shadow Chancellor, of course, who was in the chamber yesterday when Rachel Reeves gave what you might call a spirited performance, Mel. I don't know what you made of it, but it seemed to me that she was trying very hard to look as if she was very, very sure that she was doing everything right. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Well, what I had the opportunity to do, mate, was lay out her record in no uncertain terms on the floor of the House. And this is a government, you know, that has seen growth killed stone dead. There's been a slightly better news on inflation today, but nonetheless, the OBR saying that inflation will be higher in every year of the next 5 years than was the case, or would have been the case, under us. She's taxed businesses to almost to destruction. She's talked down the economy, and it's no surprise, therefore, and this was the point I was making to her yesterday, that we've seen these huge increases in bond yields. Now, some of that, of course, is due to global circumstances, but a lot of it isn't. We are an outlier, and we are suffering higher interest rates in this country on our borrowing, higher servicing costs on our national debt as a consequence of this crisis made in Downing Street.
Well, exactly right. And no matter how much money she says that she's going to save from Whitehall, and I'm not sure that's going to be very much at the end of the day, they're still arguing about giving £9 billion to Chagos Island, to Mauritius rather, having given away the Chagos Islands. We're not sure if that deal is going to go through or not. You know, they seem to find money when they want to, and yet none of it seems to be helping the economy. So despite all of the kind of slashing and burning that they're doing and the tax collecting, we're all worse off somehow.
Yeah, absolutely, because they got fundamentally the wrong policy. The first thing is they do not have a pro-growth policy. What they're doing is putting taxes up on the very parts of the economy that are there to grow growth, and that's business, and that's why you're seeing all these confidence surveys, business confidence surveys falling through the floor. They should be concentrating far more, not just on spraying money around, but actually getting productivity up. That's the key to getting more out of public services and getting the economy going. And they've got to tackle welfare, Mike. Now, when I was Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, I reformed welfare to the extent that the OBR says there's a £5 billion worth of savings that I've introduced. Now, there's much more to be done in that area, but we hear nothing from this government about getting to grips with the spiralling welfare budget. We need people off benefits and into work.
Yeah. And what about getting people out of work and back on the back benches? I mean, Tulip Siddiq's the latest one. It seems to have fallen foul of Keir Starmer's wish to do away with cronyism. I mean, some of the things he said before he was elected Prime Minister are quite laughable now when you look back, when he talks about, you know, ending all sorts of, you know, friendship deals, you know, cosy deals. You know, he's lost 2 cabinet ministers and he's had to get rid of Sue Gray. 3 women. Rosie Duffield says Keir Starmer's got a problem with women. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be able to keep them in their jobs.
Well, with Tulip, I mean, the real story here actually is how she lasted so long. And as you say, I think the Prime Minister should have stepped in and sorted out. You can't have a minister, Mike, who fundamental to their role is anti-corruption and having all these issues swirling about her. When Rachel Reeves went to China, Tulip Siddiq was not with her, and one of the reasons why she wasn't with her was because of all these issues. So she's not been able to do her job. It's right that she's gone, but it's not right that the Prime Minister failed to act as quickly as he should have done.
Well, indeed. I mean, we were playing a clip earlier on today from 2023 when he was having to go at Boris Johnson about Dominic Raab's resignation and how, you know, the Prime Minister should have sacked him. He shouldn't have waited for him to resign. It's indecisive. It's weak. It shows that he's not a proper leader. I mean, apart from the name Dominic Raab, if you'd replaced it with Tulip Siddiq, he's basically described himself.
Right. Okay. Well, I haven't seen that clip that you just
maybe we should play it.
Played.
Let's play it. Let's play it for you.
Okay, let's do it.
Have a look.
Okay.
Because there's a double weakness here. He should never have appointed him in the first place, along with other members of the cabinet that shouldn't have been appointed. And then he didn't sack him. And even today, it's Raab who resigns rather than the Prime Minister who acts. No matter how many times you change the person at the top, you've essentially got a party that just can't deliver, just can't govern. Well, the big question for the Prime Minister is why he was so weak to appoint him in the first place. The second question for the Prime Minister is why he didn't sack him. And now it's left to Dominic Raab to resign, and the Prime Minister hasn't acted. And it's that indecision, it's that weakness, I think, that goes to the heart, not just of this Prime Minister, but of 13 years now of failure.
Yeah. So the third question for the Prime Minister is, when did you decide you needed some free glasses from Lord Ali? You didn't wear them then.
Are you about to play another clip?
No, that's it.
No,
but, I mean, everything he says there, everything he says there is entirely what he's just done.
Yes. Well, you could have interchanged, as you say, Dominic Raab for Tulip Siddiq, and it would have been a fair charge. So, yeah, I stick with my point, Mike. You know, he should have acted much earlier. Look, you know, given the extent of the problems and challenges that we are facing, and the way this government has gone about grinding the economy to a halt, you would think the most important thing you could have is a fully functioning Treasury front bench.
Yeah.
And that clearly has not been the priority that should have been on the part of the Prime Minister. And that's why he should have moved Tulip Siddiq on earlier. You know, we have a Chancellor out there that's taking really a lot of the wrong decisions. And I think they really need to start thinking about turning this thing around, getting a grip on it. Or I'm afraid we're going to just carry on ploughing into ever more economic problems. And it'll have real effects for people right up and down the country, including the people listening to your programme.
Absolutely right. And an awful lot of it hasn't even happened yet. So when it does happen in April,
well, you're right.
Be even
April,
worse.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, people talk about the national insurance hikes and the impact of that. Well, you're absolutely right. They haven't actually bitten yet. They will in early April when they come into force. And amongst the effects that they'll have, Mike, is, of course, they will mean that business profitability will go down. That will mean business investment will go down. It will also mean people, them hiring less people, so unemployment will go in an upward direction. But it will also be, to some degree, inflationary, because some of these businesses will have to pass those additional costs on by way of higher prices. And that, in turn, will mean that interest rates will stay higher for longer. So people who've got mortgages will be paying more on their mortgages. So this is all a vicious circle. And the fundamental decisions on tax that this government took when it came into office have, I'm afraid, proven ruinous.
Yeah, they really have. Let me ask you about Gerry Adams. It's on the front page of the Telegraph this morning as well. But let's just listen to a voice note we've got from one of our viewers, Andy, who wants to say this.
Good morning, Mike. Andy in Portsmouth. I myself never served in the forces, but my good friend and next door neighbour did, and he was in the Royal Marines, and he played for the band. And in 1989, when the IRA detonated a bomb and killed 11 of his friends and colleagues and injured 20 odd others, he's now left on the shelf, PTSD, alcoholism, and he's basically got nothing. And Starmer wants to start giving money to Gerry Adams. I tell you what, Mike, it makes my bloody blood boil. It really does.
It's hard to believe, isn't it, Mel? I mean, some of these things that we argue about in politics, you know, you can have a view, you can take, opposing views and have a row and have a laugh and pat yourselves on the back at the end of it. But this seems to me to be a different area. I mean, the idea that Gerry Adams, a man who, as it was pointed out to me earlier on, didn't bother to turn up for his job in Parliament because he refused to pledge allegiance to the Crown, took the money, took expenses, is now possibly in line for compensation for being locked up during the Troubles in Ireland. I mean, I've had a very, very strong response to this morning. I mean, it seems incredible that he can get away with it.
I mean, look, that recorded message that we've just heard really heads up the fact that these are really deep and serious issues, as I think you're saying. It is not right that the government should be seeking to amend and change legislation to allow Gerry Adams and others, or those that are involved in the IRA and so on, to seek compensation around their interment in the 1970s. Now, that is legislation that will need to go through Parliament, and that is legislation that, in those terms, we will be resisting very firmly indeed.
Yeah, well, let's hope so, because I think an awful lot of the victims' families as well, and there are many of those, are saying this is untenable. We didn't get any compensation. You know, the victims didn't get any compensation. Absolutely extraordinary. In terms of just one final thing, I was just talking to John Curtis there about the May elections and the current polls, which are still showing the Conservatives trailing now behind Reform on quite a number of different polls. The Conservatives keep saying that they are the party of opposition, but it's beginning to look like Reform might be the party of opposition, certainly in local government, very possibly in the next couple of years.
Well, look, we'll have to see where that goes. What we have to concentrate on now as a party is firstly holding this government to account effectively. Now, the British people expect us to do that. That's why I'm on your programme talking about the economy, holding the government to account. And that's part of the way of regaining trust. Because, Mike, I think we have to be absolutely honest. We as a party lost the trust of the electorate at the last general election. But the second thing we've got to do is not to lose sight of the fact that the general election now is going to be about 4.5 years away. So we have the time now to do that deep, thoughtful thinking around putting together the kind of policy platform, including and particularly actually on the economy, such that we can meet the aspirations of the British people, get into that position of trust, and then take over from this rotten Labour government that I'm afraid is going completely in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely right. Mel, thank you very much indeed. Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor, there talking from Westminster.